been.
It has.
We've been traveling. Now, you still got to live this life a little bit because you went to Raleigh, correct?
I did. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina.
You went to Raleigh for a couple days. It is, and here's the thing: you got a good weekend. A good weekend is where the local team that you cover wins the first game, and you get to stay, and you don't have to learn how airplane travel works in the dark recesses of the internet.
Shout out to Josh Young because I kind of just told him, I was like, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to have to fly out there. 18-hour drive, by the way.
Yeah.
I was not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're just going to have to fly out there. And it just is cheaper to book a round-trip flight than try and figure out what to do on the back end. And also with hotel reservations and all that. So if Baylor hadn't won their first-round game against Mississippi State, I would have been exploring the greater Research Triangle area to figure it out. The thing, because I wouldn't have done anything. I would have just been there for a weekend.
And look, here's the deal. Credit to Josh Young for having that kind of foresight because there are many people in his position that say, no, you got to come back.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it like you've budgeted for the whole weekend. It's not lost money, right? You've budgeted for the hotel stay and all these things. Yeah. I try to explain this to a couple of different radio people in my day. And I was like, listen, so like when you make a budget, right, you budget this. And then the thing is that if I change a flight, it's more than 50% that like the money that you think you're going to be saving on that extra 2 nights of hotel might pour right back into the flight. So you might as well just let me stay here.
Yeah.
And I'll pay for my you know what I'll do? I'll pay for my meals while I'm like in the not work time since I can't work. Or like when I'm in the Big 12 tournament, just let me stay there and cover the rest of the league. Right. You know, we have fans of every, especially of every Texas team. We certainly had fans listening to us when we were on the radio here. But it's when you have to leave, like when you got to go, like I've had to do it in Raleigh and Jacksonville. When you got to leave early, it's a pain. It is an absolute pain. Now, if you drive there and you leave early, it's not, whatever. You stay the next night, you get up, or you leave, you drive whatever it is.
That's what I did in Kansas City. But, the idea that, it's an international airport in Raleigh-Durham, but the idea that you were going to find a affordable flight back to Dallas, not a lot going in and out of it. I think there were 2 going in and out of there that day. And mine was delayed, even still on Monday. So, the idea that I was probably going to have to drive to, like, Charlotte or something. I also didn't have a car. So, I would have just had a real pleasant weekend exploring North Carolina, which I'd never been to before, I don't think.
Yeah. You've never been to North Carolina?
Not in passing, I think.
It's a lovely, it's a wonderful state. It's a wonderful state. Garrett, you ever been to North Carolina?
I've been there. I've been through there a couple times, yes.
Okay. You didn't go through there at all this time around, right?
No, this time we went Virginia into West Virginia. I skipped going that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I made that route. My grandparents, God bless them, when we were all, me and my cousins were all around the same age, 10 years old.
Yeah.
They loaded 6 of us into a car and drove from Texas all the way kind of like up the Mid-South, the East Coast, all the way up to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I think we skipped North Carolina, but we went to places like Richmond, Virginia.
I've been to a lot of places in the southern part of the ACC going to school. Clemson was as far north as I was willing to go. Not willing, but also able. Like you get in a car from Tallahassee and decide you're going to North Carolina. It's not really that far, but it's far enough to where the day of, you're like, let's go. We're playing North Carolina.
Later.
Let's go. And then, after the game is over, you're like, is
that really worth it?
I gotta get back and take a test. So it's just far enough to where, unless you have parents that were willing to fly you there, no, it wasn't worth it. So I never got to go up to any of the venues for sporting events. I've always wanted to. I have covered many Baylor and Big 12 events, like NCAA tournament-wise. Never have I once wound up at one in North Carolina.
Check out my go-to polo from Flag and Anthem. It's everything you want in a golf polo, but you can wear it at a dinner, to a barbecue, whatever your plans are. It's extremely soft, super comfortable. Check it out, flagandanthem.com.
Really?
Never once. And they've been in North Carolina for men's and women's basketball
A lot.
Yeah. But never once has the wheel fallen on me to get to go there. I mean, I've been to places like I said, Jacksonville, Providence, Anaheim, Tulsa, Salt Lake City.
Spokane.
I've never been to Spokane. That one's eluded me a little bit.
I think it's eluded everyone because we were really planning just how the sausage is made about like how I was going to get back and go to, if they were somehow to upset Duke and go to Newark, but then we were going to send Chad to Spokane. And that was like, it almost is impossible to Newark easy, but getting to Spokane, Washington, you might as well like, I don't know, teleport because you have to fly into Seattle and then drive like 3 hours. Why they have that tournament there, I have no idea, but I digress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lovely place.
Yeah.
I have a very close friend who lives there. Used to work at Baylor, as a matter of fact. And used to work at Gonzaga. I've never been there. Northern California, we were there one time. I want to say, I've been to every bowl game, spot that Baylor's ever been to. And if I've decided not to go to a bowl game, I'll tell you it's because I've been to that bowl game before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? They didn't really.
Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. And the one I would like to go back to is if Baylor makes the Pop-Tarts Bowl, I would love to go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl because before it was the Pop-Tarts Bowl, it was the Russell Athletic Bowl, and it was the I Could Give a Rip Bowl by the bowl committee because the Citrus Bowl was the next week, and they doubled them up. And so they've got the Citrus Bowl coming in and you've got an SEC team and an ACC team, and these are teams that regionally, it's going to be a big deal because people are coming to Orlando. And you have Baylor and North Carolina playing in a bowl game the week before, and they were very rude to us.
Was that the Camping World Bowl?
Camping World,
yeah.
Yes, Camping World, Russell Athletic Camping World. It was whatever it was, Camping World Stadium.
And they built that huge stadium in Orlando, hoping for an NFL team, and hadn't been there.
Yeah, so they had so we did that, and it was so. We get to the we're doing our show from the hotel that's the media headquarters, which is also both teams. I think North Carolina was across the street, but Baylor's hotel and the media hotel were the same thing.
Yeah.
And so the Bowl Hotel, so there was an office. There's never anybody in it, and we couldn't we were there for 2 days before they gave us the bowl schedule, and we're like, hey, when can we go get interviews with the players? No, we don't have availability. You can chase them around the children's hospital if you want. I'm like. No, I'm not gonna hey, whoa. Hey, I need to talk about the quarterback situation because that was a bowl where they didn't have a quarterback. If you remember, they ran the Wild Air offense. Hey, I'm gonna ask all these players about the quarterback situation. Hey, Timmy, I'm sorry about your leg, but shut up right now.
Yeah,
we
got to know if anybody's gonna be slinging the rock.
You were you are being very selfish. I'm sorry about all the tubes in your body, but this is not your time. I am absolutely, because those things are photo events, right?
Right.
You don't really go to get interviews and then it's really quick after as people are getting on the bus. You go to take the video and you get to see the cool things that they're doing and visiting the kids.
Quite frankly, I mean, it is good for the kids and everything else, but it is PR for the schools as well. And they interview them in the hallway and it's what is it like going and doing this for the children? It's a great thing that they do, but to usurp that with hey, is anybody going to be able to throw the football? No, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
Not again, it's not the right time. So then we're well, when's there an open practice? And they're there's 12 minutes tomorrow, and you're what? We were at the Fiesta Bowl just a year ago, and they were hey, do you want him to come to your hotel room and take a nap? And then when he wakes up, you can just ask him?
Yeah.
They were all about it. And I'm sure Bryles loved it because it was this is the best bowl I've ever been to.
I don't have to talk to anybody.
Because I don't have to talk to anyone. But for us, it was really hard. And then they didn't really care. And then all of a sudden, this thing becomes the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And it's the coolest, most fun bowl ever now. And and here I was at Russell, they didn't even give me shorts. Like I didn't get anything the year before again. And this is coming off the Fiesta Bowl too. So we're at the Fiesta Bowl and the Cotton Bowl 2 years in a row where they just roll out the red carpet. The Cotton Bowl put on a private John Legend concert for us. It was amazing. It was at the Glass Cactus at the Gaylord. It was unbelievable. John Legend. The New Year's party at Camelback in Arizona was unreal. Unreal. A shrimp tower, like, honestly, they needed an actual architect. Like, there was a guy with the table that designed the shrimp tower. It was ridiculous. And then you get to the Russell Athletic Bowl, and they're like, there is a drug and sundry store in the lobby of the hotel. It closes at 9 p.m. So, that was it. We were across from a Dave & Buster's, so that wasn't too bad.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just and then you get to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and they're like, Pop-Tarts! Everybody have fun! College football's great! And I'm like,
a Pop-Tart injected into your veins. It's crazy.
Where were you guys when we were here in 2015, and it was like, there's going to be a football game on Thursday night. Come, don't come. We don't give a shit.
Well, people stopped being able to afford, third wheel, and all we can afford is Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, it was when we were there, it was Russell Athletic, and then it became Camping World. So it was at Camping World Stadium, and that was Russell Athletic Bowl. And so, Russell Athletic was I thought maybe you get some shorts, maybe there's an event.
Some old football grays that you used to practice in 7th grade.
Yeah, something like that. No, there's not even a commemorative pen or notebook. They did not care.
Those football grays, if you played middle school football, by the way. If you didn't, let me inform you.
High school, high school we had them too, yeah.
Yeah, it was old. Worn by generations past.
Yeah.
I'm surprised when you put them on, they didn't disintegrate.
Yeah.
But they would put those on, and then you take a clip, almost it wasn't a bungee cord, but almost like a belay or something, and loop them together. And then I swear to God, they didn't use soap and water on these things. I think half of our team got staph infection from they just would throw those in an industrial washer. And it was some coach coaching 7th grade who could not be bothered to wash them. They would just throw it in there, and you get them back, and they'd still kind of smell when you got them back. I just remember that. And Russell Athletic, sponsor the pod.
Yeah, we were in charge. They would keep our game uniforms when I was in high school. The coaches would be in charge of the game uniforms.
Yeah.
But the practice uniforms and practice pants and all that stuff were on us. And I still can remember my mother's face when I would bring it home.
Ugh.
And I'm like, hey, we got to wash this. And she'd be like, uh-huh.
Just the worst.
But it was funny because you come back, and then for about 10 minutes, you smell springtime fresh.
Yeah.
You're out on the football field, you're running around, you're like, oh, man, I smell clean. And then immediately after, I can still remember, if I close my eyes, the smell of the locker room.
Ugh.
The day after the first all-contact practice. Where, because we had the thing, you had the things you hang the shoulder pads on so they can air out.
Yeah.
And so they're airing out, man. Then you come in, it's Florida. It's also Florida in the summertime.
Yeah.
So it's just it's swampy, and everybody sweats at different.
I got to tell
levels.
you, East Texas wasn't much better.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you had 10 minutes after practice to try and get if you did shower. 98% of the kids did not shower. They just sprayed on Axe body spray and went to math.
We had my sophomore year, they built a new gym, and they moved the girls' locker rooms into there. And there were boys' locker rooms for basketball and every other sport that was in the gym. Football kept the old locker rooms in the old building, the Santini Center, which is no longer there. In fact, we raised money to tear it down after, that was my senior class.
It was condemned.
Was yeah. So anyhow, in that old building, where they would the two things we were having it after the new thing was the school play, because it had an auditorium, and then it was the football locker room. So the boys' locker room forever at Bishop Rural High School, and I'm saying this, and I want to say their name, so in case they're watching it now, they know. I mean, it's not the problem, but I want this in the lore. I want students to catch this now, to know that the shower was, I mean, the best way you can describe it was phallic, and it had a little hole. And that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
It looked like this thing was peeing on you. And it was just one
jet stream.
Jet stream of water. So you would have so imagine soaping up your whole body and then having to move around. You had to walk back and forth in front of it so you could get clean. It was fine on your hair, because you could just kind of do that. But okay, I do right arm, left arm, and then I got to walk back and forth, and you get your chest clean, and you're all that stuff. And you had to rush because there's, everybody's wanting to shower. So then they open up the other one, and the water pressure in these glorious showers that became the varsity showers was unbelievable.
Take paint off a wall.
It was this glorious shower head with all this, and all of our first questions to our coach, our freshman coach, Coach Gill, was Coach, the hell, man? What? Aren't we smellier? Do we not know? I know girls care more, but I haven't felt clean in this shower. A whole year I'm showering in this thing.
Yeah, they have to fumigate the school after and
the year. I'm covered in mud and grass and all these things, and I'm trying to get it off with this. And then, my dad will be didn't you shower? I'm you should see that thing.
Yeah.
Kinda,
It's spraying down a dog with a hose after they roll
I got into some kind of bizarre phallic bird bath that got some of it off me.
Yeah.
God forbid I walk up and talk to one of the cheerleaders after the game. She'll never forget it, and not in a good way. So yeah, it was. That's what I remember. Royden, you were there. You got to see Duke in person.
I did,
and that's a hell of a thing, isn't it?
They're good, man. I don't know what to tell you. Baylor. God bless them. They came to play. They were ready. They were ready to go. I think Norchad O'Meara getting 3 fouls just was kind of the death nail for them, because
that was the only thing they could do to keep it where you can maybe muddy the water. I don't think even if he hadn't, it wouldn't have wound up.
They still probably
terribly.
would have beat them by 15.
It maybe wouldn't have been as bad. They wouldn't have gotten to go on a run before halftime that just killed Baylor's spirit.
But that has been Baylor basketball the entire time. It's where they just kind of let the rope, this entire season, where they let the rope go a little bit and it slips through their fingers, and then they would have to try to claw their way back in the second half. That happened time and time again this year, where I was sitting next to Casey and Sydney Wicker, and I was they are up right now. We need to watch. If they let Duke go on a run before the half, it's over. Mm-hmm. And they did. Norchad went out with 3 fouls, and they just didn't have anybody that could possibly bang with those behemoths down low. They had 3 guys that were 7 foot tall. Their point guard was about as tall as Norchad O'Meara. Tyrese Proctor's 6'5". Mm-hmm. They went across the board 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", 6'10", 7 foot or something like that. And that's not always how basketball is won. We get that, but it just, Baylor couldn't drive inside. They couldn't get past the length of Duke to even get a shot going towards the basket. And the fact that they were at one point up with 6 minutes left to play in the first half was kind of a minor miracle that they had kind of hung in there. Duke, even with all the free throws, Baylor fans will chirp about that, yada, yada, yada. Baylor was intentionally being physical as hell with them the entire way and daring the officials to call fouls, and they did.
Yeah.
But that, they knew that's what they had to do. Norchad just got 3 fouls, and then it was out. And then what really spelled kind of disaster, I think, and it's going to spell disaster for any team going up against them, Cooper Flagg scored 2 points in the second half, and it just did not matter. Tyrese Proctor, granted, Baylor's 3-point shooting defense has been atrocious all year, but Tyrese Proctor looked like he looked like Steph Curry.
Yeah.
And he's a really, really good player. I think he'll probably get drafted really high this year. after he stuck around for another season. But like he'll get drafted high. I think it's Knuppel. How do you pronounce his name? Nipple, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure. And I mean, he's projected as like a top 8 pick too. Like, but Cooper Flagg, I was going to tweet that he was like SGA like after he was getting all those free throws just to kind of like stir the pot a little bit. But he really was like he'd get into his shot so easily. He just kind of flow, turn around, up and under, foul, hit the floater in the lane, like drive right, cross back left, step back 3. And it just everything was so seamless for Duke. And Baylor just kind of looked lost trying to stick with him. They just didn't have the guys. And even VJ, who had a pretty good second half and ended up with 16 points and 6 rebounds, I believe, like he couldn't get anything going towards the basket in the first half, and then kind of decided to just like, I'm just going to put my head down and see if they call a foul. And he got in, which is what he kind of probably should have been doing all season.
Yeah.
And I think his main critique of VJ is that sometimes he wouldn't do that when it's like nobody can stay in front of you, dude.
Yeah.
But they were giving him problems because they were long. They were just
Yeah.
they were just longer and bigger than everybody else. And yeah, you're going to be tough. Even though Duke has not played, you go down their schedule, like that bad Kansas team beat them this year.
Yeah.
Like Clemson beat them this year, and they only have 2 or 3 3 losses this year.
Yeah.
Like some mediocre teams beat them, but they also had to like shoot the lights out, and Duke had to have a bad day. And they didn't, credit to them, bad ACC. They just didn't drop any of those games.
No, I mean to me that's where you might like get through the fog of, well, this team hasn't really played anybody. It's not their fault. One, that their conference normally that's really good, that had teams in the, a bunch of teams at the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and Final Four last year fell off.
Right.
NC State's in the Final Four, they fired their coach. It's not Duke's fault that happened, but the fact that they only lost to Clemson, the second bet, like there were 2 other teams, Clemson and Louisville in the ACC, that were worth their salt, and they only lost to Clemson. Like that to me is saying something, that when everybody else came along, like really bad Miami, mediocre FSU, mediocre Notre Dame, like whoever it was, bad NC State, like all these things came along, they didn't have a night where one of those teams jumped up and got them.
Yeah, and I tweeted, and I think Duke fans found it, but I tweeted as like looking at, quietly whispering, looking at Duke's schedule, I think Baylor can win, and then they housed them. And that just kind of, it really solidified to me. It's like
Baylor at full strength, which they have not been at any point this year.
Yeah.
Not for one actual minute.
4 minutes. I mean, in the UCF game, it was literally 4 minutes where they had Love, Roach, Ojanwuna, and then Ojanwuna goes out with a knee.
Yeah.
Like, VJ was on and off actually hurt this year, which, he played 30 games, I believe, but he sprained his ankle or something a couple times. Like, so it was 4 minutes in the UCF game where they had 7 or I think all 8 rotation players that they were trying to go into this year and play. Mm-hmm. Granted, the roster construction was still bad because they didn't have like any backup forwards.
Yeah.
That could really give them anything off the bench. But yeah, so Baylor full strength maybe would have, given them a little bit more. I just think it's like, it ends up being a 10-point game instead of a 23-point game. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Or maybe Norchak goes out with 3 fouls, and then you're able to still set better screens and pick and roll and do all that stuff, and maybe you hang with them a little bit and don't let them go on that 17-5 run at the end of the first half, and you make it a better game in the second. You can what if all day. What really happened is that all season they didn't defend the 3-pointer well, and Tyrese Proctor went 7 of 9 from 3.
Yeah. So it's that way. And look, Duke's one of the teams in this thing that I don't want to see. Like, there's
but
no
are they?
situation.
I don't think they're invincible. That's tough to say. After
I don't think there's anybody that's totally this is not a Baylor Gonzaga year or a Kansas year, like one of those where like Kansas, Baylor, Gonzaga in 2020 would have been all in the Final Four, I think. And that would have been insane. Like it would have been just. That's where it was going. Those teams were just so much better than everybody else. You have some teams I do think, I think Houston, Duke, Florida, Auburn, as the 1 seeds are a little ahead of the 2 seeds, but not that much further.
I think Duke's depth of talent is really going to actually play, because it's like they took Tyrese Proctor out with like 5 minutes left and still continue to go on a run against Baylor starters, quite frankly. And I think their depth of talent is really going to come into play. I'll be interested to see if somebody Houston's not that big, but I'll be interested to see, because I think Juwan Roberts is only like maybe 6'7". I'll be interested to see if somebody can really get into them, and if the refs swallow their whistles a little bit, what's going to happen with Duke. But Baylor tried and they ended up shooting 18 free throws in that first half. But I'll be interested to see if somebody with the defensive prowess of Houston can get into them a little bit and throw them off their game, maybe they hadn't seen. But I wouldn't bet on it. I just think they had so many options.
Yeah.
That it made your head spin.
Yeah.
Because you're going in and you're keying on Cooper Flagg for obvious reasons. But then it's just boom, swing the ball around Tyrese Proctor, bang. It continued all game. So I'll be interested to see if somebody can really get into them. But they were just big, man.
Yeah.
It's not good basketball analysis. Something that was they had really tall guys.
Well, but everybody Baylor was having to play different types of zones, because if you went man to man, which they do most of the time anyway, but if they went man to man, everybody on Duke's team is 2 inches taller minimum than the guy assigned to guarding them.
Yeah, they just throw it up to. I'm forgetting the center's name, but they just throw it up to. They did it several times in that second half where he was just wide open for an alley-oop dunk.
Yeah.
And it's not like he was rolling hard to the basket and they found it. I mean, he just they kind of just threw it up to him, it felt like.
Yeah. Okay. We do have, there is some breaking news today in college football that I did not get to that I want to talk about. Stanford fired their head football coach.
Oh, you don't say.
Troy Taylor. Andrew Luck, the GM, made that decision.
He's the GM?
Yeah, he's the GM at Stanford. So I want to talk about that next for a second, because Stanford has had a president get fired. They've had a plagiarism scandal. It was him. They've had all this flux in a normally very stable place. It's trickled down to athletics, but Troy Taylor got fired because of Title IX investigations and harassment and belittling female employees. And my question, just to ponder, one, where does he think he works? A. And B, when does he think he works? The where, I mean, could be anywhere, honestly, but it's still Stanford. It's in Northern California.
Yeah.
It's in Palo Alto. This is, you've also seen when you took the job, you've seen all these other investigations and things go on. So when you took the job, everybody's on high alert about everything, right? Also, but I think the bigger question is that you're doing this. When do you think it is? What year?
What year?
If I asked you, Troy Taylor, if you can walk down the hall and say some of the things that you think you can say and think that's just how I was brought up, what year do you think it is? Because if it's not 2025, or you know what? I'll give you a 5-year grace period. If it's not 2020 to now, if there's anything lower than 2020, then we need to have you checked, because times have changed and you can't just do that anymore and expect no one to say anything or do anything and expect that it's okay.
Yeah, to cower to it.
Yeah.
I just go back to the Always Sunny bit with Charlie. What do you think is happening right now? He doesn't even get us, man.
Yeah. Like right now,
Where do you think we are?
Where are we? When are we? When are we? And where are we? And I don't think he. So I'm curious to see. Again, it's March, so
Yeah.
Stanford's not the same kind of attractive job it was before, because it's in a conference it absolutely did not want to be in. I mean, they could do whatever they want. They have all the money in the world, but also you can't. Your goal can be to let's get every super smart guy on this roster.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What if they don't want to go there?
Right.
This not like you can't just have the market on the smart guys.
They have the same problem that, any of those schools, like Rice,
Well, yeah,
Rice doesn't have the sort of facilities and money.
Yeah, nobody has the money that Stanford
does. And Rice has money. It should be in an attractable place like downtown Houston. Their facilities aren't really great. I've been around there, but
Kennedy spoke at the football stadium.
Yeah, exactly. It was that speech of we can go to the moon because it's hard.
Yeah.
Or we choose to go to the moon because it's hard. That takes place in the same football stadium. They played the first Super Bowl there, by the way. That stadium's still there.
The door on the bathroom of the press box, still the same door. I promise you that. That's the one thing I thought was hey, of all the things you could change, you could put a new door, and things, but it's that heavy old door. The thing is built to last. Not knocking it, but I was surprised that I opened the door and it's got that old brass knob and the heavy door. Yeah.
Fun fact, you got uranium poisoning.
Yeah. So
take a Geiger counter and just take it over the entire stadium.
What it's different. Stanford can do what they want, but what do you do? We'll talk about that next. This is 365 Sports and the Triple Option.